In the afternoon, my phone suddenly started ringing with a loud emergency warning. I quickly picked it up and an emergency alert appeared on the screen. The message clearly said that a dangerous zombie virus had spread throughout the entire city and people who were still safe inside their homes should not go outside under any circumstances. I immediately looked outside through the window, but the scene in front of me made my heart sink. When I looked outside, the entire city seemed to have gone completely insane. People were attacking each other like wild animals and brutally biting even people they knew. The streets were covered in blood and there were screams and chaos everywhere. For a few moments, my mind went completely blank. I couldn't understand how the entire city had turned into such a disaster within just a few minutes. Suddenly, someone knocked on my door. I carefully opened it and my neighbor, a young man, forced his way into my room. There was blood on his clothes and he kept saying that he wasn't infected and that he just wanted to hide in my room for a while. I didn't trust him at all, but seeing his condition, I allowed him to use my bathroom. However, for my own safety, I kept a knife ready in my hand. As soon as he came out of the bathroom, his eyes suddenly started turning red and blood began coming out of them. I immediately told him to leave my room, but it was already too late. He transformed into a dangerous zombie right in front of my eyes and started attacking me. Somehow I pushed him back, forced him outside, and immediately locked the door from inside. Now I was completely sure this virus could turn anyone into a zombie at any moment. My name was John Woo. I was a social media creator and lived alone in another city, far away from my family. In this terrifying situation, the first thing I thought about was my family. I immediately called my mother, but she didn't answer. After a while, I received some messages from her. She told me that she was in a safe place and was trying to get back home. She told me only one thing: don't open the door for anyone. Reading that gave me some relief, but I knew the situation in the city was only going to get worse. Reading that gave me some relief, but I knew the situation in the city was only going to get worse. For the next few days, I stayed locked inside my room. First, I counted all the food I had and calculated how many days it could last. Eventually, I started rationing my food and water so carefully that I could survive for at least 10 to 15 days without going outside. And by then, it had been almost 6 days since I had been trapped inside this building. The surroundings had completely changed. There were no neighbors left and no one to talk to. The loneliness was starting to consume me from the inside. To keep myself entertained, I tried playing a game, but after a while, it disconnected because there wasn't even another player available online. Disappointed, I lay down on my sofa. At around midnight, I suddenly heard someone screaming and running outside. I immediately looked out the window and saw a female police officer running for her life from a group of zombies, but there were far too many of them. They surrounded her and attacked her within moments. There was nothing I could do to help her. I tried shouting loudly to distract the zombies, but it had the opposite effect. One of the zombies heard my voice and came straight to my door. Suddenly, someone started banging violently on my door. I immediately grabbed a hockey stick and stood in front of the door. When I looked through the door, I was terrified. A very large zombie had already broken through the door and entered my room. I knew I couldn't fight it directly, so I quickly came up with a plan and climbed over the railing right in front of it. As soon as it rushed toward me to kill me, I quickly moved away, causing it to lose its balance and fall through the window. That was how I somehow managed to save my life. But when I went back toward the window, the scene outside shocked me. There were now many more zombies on the streets than before. I could clearly see that almost the entire city had turned into zombies. I immediately pulled myself together and somehow repaired my broken door. But inside, I was completely broken. I felt like I wouldn't be able to survive much longer in this city. The food I had saved for days was also ruined when the zombie broke into my room. Because of the damage to the door, the refrigerator fell over and all my food was destroyed. Now I had nothing left to eat. That night, I had to go to sleep hungry. The next morning, I turned on the TV to keep myself occupied. The news was reporting that almost the entire city had turned into zombies. Suddenly, a noodle advertisement appeared on the screen. Seeing it made me so hungry that I immediately cooked all the noodles I had saved and ate them. After finishing the food, I realized that I had made a huge mistake. I should have saved it and eaten it little by little, but there was no point regretting it now. I turned on the tap to get some water, but not a single drop came out. I checked every tap in the house, but there was no water anywhere. Now I was facing another serious problem. The food was gone, and now the water was gone too. do. After running out of water, I was completely hopeless. Then the news reported that anyone who needed help could record a message and send their location. A rescue team might be able to reach them. Without wasting any time, I recorded a video message. I gave them my address and explained my situation, telling them that I had no food and no water left. I begged them to send help as soon as possible. After sending the message, I could only wait. But deep down, I felt like nobody was coming to save me. Morning turned into evening, and evening turned into morning, but no one came to help me. Days passed, and it had now been almost 15 days since I had been trapped inside this building. I was completely exhausted. My food and water were almost gone, and going outside meant walking straight into a city full of zombies. No help came from anywhere. I started believing that I might never make it out of this place alive. After spending so many days alone and fighting hunger and thirst, my courage completely broke down. I became so demotivated that I slowly started losing control over myself. There was no phone signal inside the house, but I desperately needed to know whether my family was safe. I picked up my selfie stand and held my phone outside the window, hoping it might catch a signal. I thought that maybe I could connect to my family this way. But as soon as I held the phone outside, the scene below terrified me. A huge number of zombies had gathered beneath the building. I immediately pulled the phone back inside, but there was still no signal. Now I felt like there was no way left for me to survive. In panic, I grabbed my hockey stick and walked out of my room without thinking. I started moving forward, pushing away the zombies that came in my path. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew that if I stayed trapped inside that room, I might slowly lose my mind. As soon as I reached the hallway, I saw the same boy who had entered my room a few days earlier. He had now completely transformed into a dangerous zombie, and right in front of my eyes, he was attacking a man. I looked toward the other hallway and saw a large number of zombies coming toward me as well. I immediately turned around and ran, but when I looked back, hundreds of zombies were chasing me. I had no choice but to run for my life. I ran toward my room as fast as I could, and somehow managed to get inside and lock the door. Once again, I had escaped the zombies. Another day passed. Suddenly, I felt a powerful tremor. Everything inside my room started shaking. I looked outside the window and saw a massive explosion at a power plant in the distance. Within seconds, the entire city lost power. Now there was no food, no water, and no electricity in my room. After being alone for so many days, I had completely lost my courage. I felt like there was no hope left for me to survive in this city. I had almost given up on living, but then suddenly, a bright light fell across my face. I immediately looked toward the source. The light was coming from the building across from mine. That meant someone was still alive in that building. I looked carefully and saw a girl standing there. After so many days, I was seeing a human face for the first time, and at that moment, a small spark of hope came back to me. For a moment, I couldn't even believe my eyes. But then the girl waved at me and signaled that she would meet me at 7 the next morning. I realized this wasn't a dream. She immediately closed her window and went back inside. Before leaving, she signaled that I shouldn't make any noise and that I had to stay completely quiet until then. Now I was sure. She was a survivor just like me. I somehow made it through the night, and as soon as morning came, I went to the window. I still hoped that my phone might get a signal so I could contact someone for help, but after trying several times, there was still no signal. Then the window of the building across from mine opened, and the girl appeared again. I waved at her and greeted her. Then I told her my name and explained that I had been trapped inside this building alone for many days. The next day, it suddenly started raining. I quickly collected some rainwater so I would at least have something to drink. Exactly at 7, the girl appeared at her window again. I greeted her. As soon as she looked at me carefully, she realized that I had been starving for days. I tried to signal that I was fine, but she could clearly see that I was hungry. She immediately tied a rope to a ball and tried throwing it toward me, but the rope didn't reach my building and fell onto the street below. For a while, we both wondered how she could send food to my building. Then I came up with an idea. I tied a rope to my drone and flew it toward her building. She grabbed the rope and secured it between her building and mine. Then she placed chips and some food inside a small basket and sent it toward me using the rope. For the first time in many days, I had food in front of me. At that moment, I realized that maybe my life wasn't over yet. I immediately took out some chocolate and chips, ate them, and thanked her with folded hands. But then I looked down and was completely shocked. A zombie had grabbed the same rope that had fallen onto the street and was trying to climb toward the girl's building. I immediately warned her by pointing toward the building. She tried to remove the rope, but it was tied to a table. When the table was pulled, she collided with it and fell unconscious. The zombie continued moving toward her window. I tried throwing some bottles down to distract it, but it didn't stop. Then I remembered my drone. I immediately flew the drone toward the zombie and started attacking it. The zombie was almost at the girl's room, but the drone managed to distract it. I kept attacking it with the drone, but it avoided every attempt. She immediately grabbed her axe and struck the zombie's arm. The zombie lost its balance and fell down. I took a deep breath in relief. The next moment, I spoke to the girl and she told me that she had run out of food too. I immediately made a risky decision. I left my room and started searching the neighboring rooms for food. I put on a hat, grabbed a flashlight, and carefully searched the rooms one by one. In one room, I found 2 walkie-talkies. I was extremely happy to find them because now we could talk directly instead of communicating only through gestures. There was no one alive inside the room. A woman had already died and her body was lying on the bed. I also found some food there. I was just about to leave with the supplies when a zombie suddenly attacked me. It almost bit me, but I somehow managed to fight it off and escape the room. After a very difficult struggle, I made it back to my room and locked the door. For the first time in many days, I ate a proper meal. I also sent some food to the girl across from me. Along with it, I sent her one of the walkie-talkies. Now, for the first time, we could hear each other's voices. Until then, we had only communicated through gestures, but now we could actually talk to each other. Voices. Until then, we had only communicated through gestures, but now we could actually talk to each other. And perhaps that was the moment when someone finally became part of my lonely life. We spent hours talking to each other through the walkie-talkies. After so many days of loneliness, our time finally started passing more peacefully. But we both knew that we couldn't stay trapped inside these buildings forever. So one day, we decided that we had to find a way out of the building. We completed all our preparations to escape. For a few moments, we prayed and then decided to use ropes to climb down through our windows. Using the stairs or the elevator was too dangerous because the entire building was already filled with zombies. This was the only way we could get outside. We both climbed down from our respective buildings using the ropes, but as soon as we reached the ground, the zombies around us immediately attacked. We fought them bravely, but soon realized that fighting such a huge number of zombies was impossible. We somehow escaped and ran back inside the building. We decided to use the elevator to reach the top floor, because we hoped that maybe a helicopter or rescue team could see us from there. We decided to go to the rooftop, because I had heard on the news that survivors could leave their messages and locations, and the government might send helicopters to rescue them. With that hope, we decided to reach the top floor of the building. We moved extremely carefully. Before taking every step, we looked around and stopped whenever we heard even the slightest sound. We knew that one small mistake could send us straight into a group of zombies. I was fighting the zombies to save my life when suddenly a man came to our rescue. He quickly pulled us into his room and saved us from the zombies. He gave us water to drink and food to eat. We sat across from him at the table and started eating. But we had no idea that this was our biggest mistake. He had mixed something into the food, and because of it, we both lost consciousness shortly afterward. When I woke up, my hands were tied and the girl was gone. After a while, I discovered the truth. That man's wife had also turned into a zombie, and he wanted to use us as bait for her. He had tied the girl up and left her inside his zombie wife's room so that she could become her prey. As soon as I understood what was happening, I picked up a gun lying nearby and pointed it at the man. I told him to let my friend go immediately, but he deliberately loosened the rope holding his wife. I tried to stop her, but his zombie wife attacked me. She was so strong that stopping her was almost impossible. I could hear the girl's screams from inside, and I was terrified. But suddenly, the girl somehow managed to overpower the zombie woman and open the door. As soon as the zombie came out, she attacked her own husband. Within moments, she killed him. The same zombie wife had ended the life of the man who had tried to use us as bait. And once again, both of us survived. We were talking to each other when the girl suddenly told me that our chances of surviving were very low. She didn't want to become a zombie, and she told me that if things got worse, she didn't want me to leave her in that condition. I didn't want to lose her, because after all these days, she had become very special to me. But then, I suddenly heard helicopters outside. A new hope of survival came alive inside me. I immediately picked up some smoke-producing grenades and threw them below to distract the zombies and create a path for us to reach the rooftop. Now we had more courage than ever. We fought our way through the zombies and finally reached the top of the building. All our hopes were now resting on those helicopters. We had barely managed to reach the rooftop. A huge number of zombies were right behind us, so we somehow managed to close the rooftop door. But the moment we reached the top, all our hopes were shattered. There was no helicopter there. I started crying and shouting in frustration. The girl then told me again that she didn't want to die as a zombie. But before I could respond, the zombies broke through the rooftop door. Hundreds of zombies started moving toward us. We thought there was no way we could survive. Then I remembered the gun. I immediately pulled it out and fired at the zombies. 2 zombies fell, but the others continued moving toward us. We were both backing away in fear. Then suddenly, we heard the sound of a helicopter coming from the sky. This time, it was real. A military helicopter had finally reached our building. The soldiers started firing at the zombies, giving us a chance to escape. They quickly pulled us into the helicopter and flew us away from the dangerous area. After fighting for our lives for so many